Hey everyone, Nubkeks here, and welcome to, which am I pointing this way? The Season 3 tier list for Heroes of the Storm, as you can see above me right here, for the Ragnaros patch, in case you're trying to work out where this is as later patches come in. But yeah, Season 3 is just about upon us, and we're going to be diving in, and this should give you a very good insight into what I think will be the most dominant heroes for every single role moving forwards into the start of this season and kind of determining it up until the point that the next patch comes out. Let's hop over here to where I have the tier list sort of set up. As you can see, we are breaking it down by role. We also have 4 tiers. I'm using this new system. I've made this S tier official this time around. I just want to go through these because there might be it might be a little bit unintuitive maybe with the way I'm structuring it. So I'm kind of considering that maybe for the next video. But yeah, S tier, the tier S, these are just maybe 1 to 3 heroes that are particularly strong in each different role. They're going to be the most dominant, the sort of the power picks that will really shape the draft. You probably expect these heroes to be banned probably most often or fought over most often, or if they're perhaps a bit unpopular, that you can pick up and really make a dramatic impact on your games with them. Then we got tier 1, 2, and 3. Now the thing I'm a bit concerned about is that tier 2, seeing as it's like down here in the list, it now looks pretty weak, and that's not the case at all. Tier 2 is kind of like the standard tier. This is the tier of heroes that are quite strong, they're perfectly acceptable, and they're going to work really, really well for you. Tier 1 are the heroes that kind of are either a little bit stronger at the moment, or the kind of the niche that they fulfill, the kind of their particular strengths in the game are very relevant to the way that the game is being played at the moment at the start of Season 3. And then Tier 3 is very noticeably weaker than the rest of the tiers. I think these are the heroes that are a good bit weaker and that you probably don't want to be picking up very often in a Hero League unless you find a very particular circumstance where they do fit very well into the draft, that, you know, it just happens that they synergize really nicely with your team, with the map choice, and that they actually counter what the enemy team is trying to do very well. Those very particular circumstances, okay, tier 3, but apart from that, kind of steer away. The tier list also is primarily aimed, you know, going into the start of Season 3, people who are placing in and around Diamond and then are looking to climb up. But of course, it will still apply to people who place into lower leagues or are looking to climb from other leagues around the place. Just as we move down in the leagues, let's say for example you're in Silver League, it's not going to apply as much. So I would take it as a rough guide, but not gospel by any means or anything like that. Anyway, I think we're about ready to dive into this, so let's go. We're going to look at the Warriors first, and we'll go through each tier sort of individually and give you a bit of an insight into each of the heroes in that tier, and then we'll move on to the other roles. So first of all, the S tier Warriors, I think, in my opinion, for the start of Season 3 are going to be ETC, Zarya, and Chen. I went for a bit of a theme thing here with these 3 picks, right? So ETC, I think, will be the best like main tank. He brings a lot of crowd control, pretty survivable through his mobility, and he's kind of like the main warrior you want to pick up and can perform really well in that role. Now the other 2 are quite different. We have Zarya, who is not really main warrior material, because she doesn't have the mobility, she doesn't have the crowd control to really control the team fights for her team, but she does bring an absolute ton of utility and a ton of usefulness and damage when she's run as a second warrior in your composition. She's fantastic, kind of bridges the gap between a warrior and a support, and does good damage as well. She does everything really well. I think Zarya is incredibly powerful, especially on, you know, think about maps like Infernal Shrines or Brax's Holdout, where you tend to have kind of larger team fights quite early on over objectives in the game. That's where Zarya is really going to shine and be very powerful. Then the third one here is Chen, and Chen, kind of like Zarya, is not the best, you know, solo warrior by any means, because he tends to, with the Storm, Earth, and Fire heroic, he tends to kind of just dive the enemy backline and leave his team a little bit kind of stranded and out in the cold, whereas ETC obviously is kind of more backing them up, for example. With Chen, in comparison to Zarya, he is excellent second warrior, but he kind of excels at being a solo laner. So if you're looking for a solo lane warrior, Chen will quite often probably be the best one. Really good at solo laning, and he's got this really hard like dive and engage in the team fights when you get to those. So yeah, kind of 3 different style warriors: the main tank, the sort of supportive second warrior, and then the solo laning second warrior. So there you go. I think these are the 3 that really stand out to me as being especially powerful, and that you do want to be directing bans at fairly often in as we go through the game. Next up, we got tier 1. I think these are the other warriors that are really, really strong. That are going to be very, very dominant as well. And they're not that much below tier the S tier by any means. And these are the following heroes. Excuse me. So first of all, we've got Tyrael. Tyrael is just, he's so good. He's really, really good. You can run him as a main warrior. You can also run him as a kind of either fulfilling either of these sort of secondary roles. He's not the best solo laner, but he can. And Tyrael is just super mobile, and he works really well with dive compositions. You know, you dive in, throw down the Sanctification, and ta-da, suddenly your comp just works incredibly well. It's very difficult to counter. So Tyrael, he's always been very strong, continues to be like that. Next up, we've got Muradin. Muradin, again, sort of the classic solo tank, solo warrior hero. There have been sort of rumors and rumblings that Blizzard is looking to change Muradin. They didn't do it in this patch, but I would not be surprised if in the coming couple of patches there's actually going to be kind of a big focus on tuning some of these warriors, because we had 3 warrior reworks in this Ragnaros patch. 2 of them are here, actually. So I wouldn't be surprised to see warriors kind of step up and be a big focus in the next couple of patches, and Muradin could be changed, so bear that in mind. But he's just a great, reliable solo tank, great all-rounder. He's always, again, for the last recent while, he's just been so strong, and people are very familiar playing with him. Next up, we got Rexxar. Rexxar is, I think, in a very interesting spot at the moment, like I said, with these potential kind of changes in the warrior meta moving forwards. What Rexxar brings is kind of the crowd control of like these main tanks, kind of like Muradin and etc. He brings quite a bit of crowd control, but then he's also a solo laner, kind of like Chen. So I think this opens up some pretty interesting compositions, running Rexxar with some of these other warriors that are maybe going to be coming up and getting a bit stronger. Like, for example, maybe Rexxar Zarya, I don't know, but just throwing that idea out there. You know, you have your sort of main CC warrior be running in the solo lane, and then kind of split away. He's kind of interesting in that sense. There's not many other solo lane warriors that do that. They're normally quite lacking in CC. For example, Dahaka, who I have over here, and is my other another top choice, who has been reworked in the last patch. I think, you know, he was already, in my opinion, tier 1. They made him a little bit better. You know, they boosted his adaptation heroic. They made his basic trait a little bit better. And his W build is very, very strong right now. So I'm expecting to see a bit more Dahaka. I think he's a bit stronger. The global got a bit nerfed, but I think he's still tier 1, maybe kind of lowish tier 1. I expect to see a lot of Dahaka, though, as a sort of solo lane. But again, much like Chen, he tends to be a hero that you wouldn't very comfortably or really at all want to be running as a solo tank, because he just doesn't have the mobility, he doesn't have the control to actually protect his team and to engage team fights, but very powerful as a second warrior. Then finally, on this particular tier, we got an interesting one here, which is Diablo, and I think I'm saying it right this time around. I hope so. But yeah, Diablo just got reworked, and I'm not 100% sure where he's going to end up. I think it will be tier 1, but I'm really not sure. This is the one that I'm it's quite up in the air for me. Who knows? He could be tier S. He could be tier 2. I'm not super sure. I'm not super sure which maps he's going to pan out well on or anything like that. So do bear that in mind. But I think he's going to be quite strong. As far as I could tell from the PTR, it was all quite large buffs they gave to him. They made his Q better. They made his W better. They gave him stronger talents. They made him much tankier. So yeah, I do think that Diablo could come back up as one of these, like the new up-and-coming sort of main tank type guy with very powerful ganks, a lot of crowd control, and just a ton of survivability. Now, he is weak to dying. That's the main concern I have with him, is that if you die and resurrect and lose all your souls, you come back much weaker. A couple of your talents can be just completely nullified without any souls in you. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it'll work out, but I'm putting him in tier 1 because I do expect where Diablo falls in this meta is going to be quite a determining factor, actually. So I'm very interested to see where he goes with that. Next up, tier 2, and again, these warriors are all, I think, very solid, very good, but you're not going to be picking them all that often, but there's certainly nothing necessarily wrong with building a composition around them. They're just not as dominant as these the tier S and tier 1 warriors. So first up, we got a Nubkeks, I think very much an underrated hero. He's very good against, you know, kind of burst mages and dive kind of compositions, because he brings like AoE CC, he's got dampen magic at level 1, and then he's got these little spawn beetles that block skill shots. So he can be very useful, actually, kind of underrated. You can run him as a solo tank. He's a little bit squishy, but you can. Or you could run him. I definitely consider running him as like a second warrior. I never see anyone do this. I never see it. I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually properly run a Nubkeks in like just a regular Hero League game as, you know, just second warrior to counter something like, you know, hey, they've got Li Ming, right, boom, we're going to grab a Nubkeks, a second warrior, let's do this, let's go. Very rarely see it, but I think it's very good, so I encourage you guys to start experimenting with that. We also have Johanna. Johanna is like a very, very safe main tank in the veins of ETC and Muradin. She brings a lot of control, she brings good wave clear, and she's very survivable. She's not quite as impactful as the other heroes, which is why I have her rated at a lower tier, but certainly a very safe option as a warrior pick, and very easy to play too, which is important. Don't get me wrong, that is important. Even for some of these master players and grandmasters and stuff, they could do with some easier heroes occasionally. Next up we got Arthas. Again, I think Arthas struggles a bit as a solo tank. He's quite good against kind of these sustained melee heroes. Not as many of them popular at the moment, but he can be quite good at countering those, you know, that AoE slowing kind of aura he has. And he's got pretty good damage. That can really make it very difficult for enemy melee heroes to actually get through your team and get on top of you and start doing damage. It can be very, very off-putting. It can be quite strong. Actually quite good against Thrall, I think. So that could be interesting moving forwards. We'll see exactly. We'll keep an eye on Arthas. We got Leoric as well. Leoric excellent against very tanky teams. Very good against a number of sort of tanky double warrior compositions, so can be worth picking up there. He's also got good wave clear. You know, he respawns very quickly, so there's a place for him, just not super common. And then Stitches, of course, the king in some ways of solo queue. With those hooks, you know, hooks can win the games, and it all comes down to the hooks. Do they have a team that's vulnerable to hooks? You know, do they have something like a Kael'thas or Zagara, who I don't think you're going to see very often, but, you know, heroes that are very vulnerable to hooks. Can their team really be punished by hooks? Can your team follow up on hooks really well? If yes, Stitches can be a pretty nice pick to bust out and surprise people with. But generally speaking, you're not going to see him that often because he falls a bit apart in other regards. It's all about the hooks with Stitches, I think. Then finally we've got tier 3. I think these are the weakest warriors overall, and you're rarely going to want to run them as warriors. Sometimes you will, but not that often. Artanis was reworked, and again, I'm really not sure where he's going to end up, because I think they took a good step with his rework. I'm not actually sure though if it's going to increase his power level at all. But certainly it opens up some cool plays in the line of hooks, in the vein of hooks, in terms of, you know, blade dashing and flipping people back. So that definitely opens some stuff up. I'm not sure about him, though. We'll keep him in mind. I have moved him up to the top of tier 3, though. I'm not sure, though. I do feel that he's probably still pretty weak. But then I'm also expecting very much that they're going to do, like, balance passes on all these reworked heroes. I think Diablo's rework seems pretty solid, but I thought Dahaka, some of his talents are like absolutely awfully balanced and designed. And then with Artanis, again, I feel like he might be a little bit weak, but we'll see. We'll see exactly how it pans out. We'll see. We also have Varian. Varian just a bit weak as a tank. He has a lot of single target lockdown, but he's really, really awful until level 10. So I don't know if you ever want to run him that much. It's quite important to have a good, you know, you would be running him as pretty much your main tank. And you kind of want your main tank to actually work before level 10, and he doesn't really, so that's kind of a bummer. We got Sonya as well. There is a place for Sonya, but she's just not anywhere near as dominant as she was. She's kind of the standard bruiser, you know, she just gets in, she does a lot of damage, she's quite tanky. She scales very nicely into the late game, but again, a bit weak early in the game, and just not what she used to be, unfortunately. She's like probably the strongest, in my opinion, at the end of the preseason. But fallen off a lot since then. And finally we've got Cho. Not super impressed with Cho. He can be countered hard. But then again, you know, sometimes you can bust it out. I think the big concern for me with Cho at the moment is that because Hero League is going to be all solo queue this season, you're going to be playing him with a stranger. You know, there's no possibility. All the Cho'Galls I've seen be effective have been people duo queuing that duo queue regularly and specifically playing Cho'Gall. When you see Cho'Gall this season, it's going to be two complete strangers who just randomly happen to pick him together. I think that can hurt because you've got no verbal, you're not on voice chat with this other person. So I think that's a big issue. I'm not expecting to see much Cho'Gall. I'm not expecting it to be that effective, but we shall see. Right, let's hop over then and just take a quick look. There you go. There's the warrior tier list. That's what I think it's going to roughly pan out to be. And let's hop over now to the assassins. Alright, so for the assassins, we'll come to Ragnaros at the end. seeing as he's the new hero. Let's go to tier S first. Tier S is pretty interesting. I think 2 of the heroes are not a huge surprise. Actually, I should say overall, I've changed the assassin tier list quite a bit. So this one should be pretty interesting, and I'll explain going through why I did make these changes. But tier S, I've got 3 heroes here. I think 2 are going to be pretty expected, and then 1 is going to shock you guys. You're going to be really surprised by this, but I think it is justified, and I'll explain why. And here we go. We have Thrall, Kerrigan, and Raynor. Raynor obviously being the one that's a surprise. So, talk about the ones that aren't a surprise first. Thrall, did not expect Earthquake to be as good as it was, but Thrall with Earthquake is just insanely strong. It's amazing. He's so good. I think he is the best assassin in the game overall. He's super consistent solo laner. The power of Earthquake in teamfights is enormous. It's just, Thrall's great. Thrall's really good right now. Same thing with sort of Kerrigan. Her early game power, her ganks, her kill pressure, her kill potential is just enormous. You get her on a map she's good on, and it's a real power pick. It really puts the enemy team in a very awkward and difficult situation. And she also punishes especially overly squishy team compositions, and that's obviously a fact, quite a large feature of Hero League. Solo queue Hero League is that people tend to want to play the flashy characters. You know, they don't often want to play the second support or the second warrior to defend their team. They prefer being flashy. So you do tend to see more overly squishy comps than you should, and Kerrigan can punish that. Next one we got Raynor, and this one's gonna, yeah, like I said, people might be kind of shocked by this, but he has an incredibly high win rate at the moment. There's actually a bug with Raynor, which I don't think has been fixed in the patch. At least I didn't see anything about it being fixed. But Seasoned Marksman is applying to Hyperion, which means that Hyperion is doing way more damage than it should, and Raynor is just absolutely wrecking face. On top of this, I do think that he is very good in the current meta. You kind of get more of an overview for that as we go through the other tier lists as well. But I mean, to pop back to the Warriors for a second, I think Raynor works really well with ETC. He also works very well against ETC. Same thing with Zarya, and he's not awful against Chen, though. Storm, Earth, and Fire obviously is difficult to deal with for anyone. But yeah, I mean, like, with ETC, the attack speed boost ETC brings is fantastic. The amount of crowd control ETC brings is amazing with Raynor. Sets Raynor up really well, and the peeling he can do, amazing. And sets him up for Executioner too, which is incredibly strong. Zarya, same thing, the protection and zoning she brings for Raynor. And then Raynor's also able to burn through these heroes really quickly. You know, once ETC engages, Raynor can burn him down. He can cancel Mosh Pit. With Zarya, again, he can knock her back. He can melt through her once her shield is worn off. Very effective. And similarly with these guys too. I think he's going to be really strong against a lot of these heroes. Raynor's strength is that he is this long-range backline hero with a knockback. Pretty useful. And then he just does a lot of right-click damage. He's very easy to play as well. Very easy to play. Just does insane focused right-click damage, which just melts through a lot of heroes. I mean, look, again, Thrall and Kerrigan. He's also very good with both of them and very good against both of them. You know, Kerrigan jumps in, he knocks her back, and then he focuses her down, and she's in big trouble. Thrall, again, you know, and with Kerrigan, you know, brings that early game power to kind of carry Raynor through, get him to the late game, and then he kind of completely overwrites her late game power. Again, plenty of Executioner stacks, procs as well for Raynor, which is nice. Thrall, Earthquake plus Executioner is just disgusting. Earthquake with Hyperion is just disgusting. You see what I mean? I think Raynor does fit really well into the meta. Even when they fix this bug on him, which, you know, Seasoned Marksman making Hyperion do too much damage, I think he's still going to be really good. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Raynor and why I have him rated so highly. Tier 1 then, we have actually moved Samuro up quite substantially, because I've noticed his win rate at high levels increasing steadily, but slowly but surely. I think there's still a bug as well with his Illusion Master Heroic, where he can just fully heal his images by self-casting it, I think. I'm not sure if that's still there. But other than that, people have started to learn how to play him, and most importantly, learning the maps he's good on, like, you know, Infernal Shrines or probably Battlefield of Eternity, things like that. He just brings incredible Merc, Blackheart's Bay as well. You know, he's great at doing Mercs, he's great at doing objectives with, you know, things that you need to kill, because he can do them really quickly without taking any damage. He's fantastic at that. So, you know, get on the shrine, on Infernal Shrines, or you can send him to take out all the Merc camps. Really useful. So yeah, Samuro, he's very strong. Now that people have kind of worked out how to play with him, very good. We got Zeratul, who I think Zeratul is just amazing. He's so good right now. His kill pressure is gigantic. Void Prison is really strong. The one thing with Zeratul I would say is that Zeratul is very difficult to play. and a lot of people aren't that good at him. So that's something that you can watch out for. Whereas, let's say, you know, with Raynor, you know, like, who can't play Raynor? Hopefully, most people can. I should see him pretty commonly played pretty well because he's not that difficult. Whereas Zeratul, there's a lot of subtlety and nuances to playing Zeratul, so that could be something that makes him a little bit less dominant in your games. But seriously, when you see a good Zeratul player, it's going to be terrifying. It really will be. Really, really will be. Next, we got Gul'dan. Fantastic, just AoE, sustained damage. Does a ton of damage. Horrify is incredibly powerful as a heroic. And he's quite tanky for a ranged damage dealer as well, which is very nice. But yeah, I think Gul'dan is just, he's really good as this sustained AoE damage dealer. Very, very strong. Great wave clear, all that. Next up, we got Vala. Again, Vala also a fairly high skill hero because she is so squishy and kind of a very fast-paced character to play. Because she's my most played character, I've kind of been underestimating how difficult she is to play, I think. And then, like, because her win rate isn't fantastic, I was kind of going, oh, well, maybe she's not that good anymore. But I think it's more so that she's just kind of harder to play than some of these other heroes. But yeah, I mean, Vala, she's just so versatile and flexible. She fits into a lot of compositions. She does need protection, though, for sure. She works really well with the Tassadar, works really well with double warriors protecting her and enabling her, which she can be really, really strong when she gets that. She's got good AoE damage, good wave clear. She's flexible in her talent build. She's good on most maps. Just great all-around hero. Really, really great all-around hero. She's got a good mix of ability damage and basic attack damage. So yeah, that's, I think, one of the big draws for Vala, is just how versatile she is. And she's has a ton of damage output as well. She does so much damage. And again, very versatile damage. Whereas, you know, Raynor does a ton, but it's very single target focused. Vala's much more versatile. Or Gul'dan does a ton of damage, but it's very AoE focused. Vala, she can do both. She can do both, and that's really important. Next up, we have Tychus. Again, I think Tychus is very, very strong, very underrated. I had a video up on him very recently too. Yeah, very underrated hero. He's great against sort of like immobile warriors, so you can definitely exploit that. He's pretty good as well against sort of these more divey melee assassins. He's got two really good heroics, good at interrupting channels on stuff with his the range and his grenade, and things like that. So yeah, Tychus, he's a pretty good damage dealer overall, and definitely underrated. And yeah, Tychus is very strong. Next, we got Li Ming, who has been nerfed quite a lot, but I really do think the secret build is very strong. I really do think it's very strong. But she is much more difficult to play than people realize. She's a very overrated hero. That being said, I do think she is tier 1, but she's going to be very overrated. You're probably going to see a lot of people picking Li Ming who are only okay at her, and she's not going to be that strong. But when you do get a good Li Ming player and a good draft for her, I think she could be quite impactful, actually. But you really do need good skill shot aim now. You can't just like fire stuff off just all over the place and, you know, walk out with top hero damage. It's not going to happen. You need skill to play Li Ming, more now than you ever did before. But if you do, she's going to still be very, very strong. Then we've got Jaina, kind of a sort of up-and-coming burst mage type hero, in the absence of Li Ming's just overall dominance, I suppose. I think Jaina becoming more and more strong. She's got a great win rate, but she has great wave clear. She has a lot of damage, a lot of burst AoE damage as well. So she can be very powerful. And bear in mind, Void Prison into Ring of Frost can be insane. But I would say that would be difficult, very difficult to pull off with this being solo queue. But I mean, hey, if you're playing unranked draft or something where you can have people duo queuing or multiple queuing, Jaina Zeratul going to be really dominant. But I think even still, when you find a good Jaina in solo queue, she's going to be very, very powerful. And it's always something you have to watch out for and beware, is that Ring of Frost, which just can win team fights. Can be really, really good. Next, we've got tier 2. Once again, these heroes I think are all quite strong, but just not as generally great as these other heroes, but still really, really good and well worth the pick. We've got Alarak. I've moved Alarak down a whole bunch in this tier list just because he is, I think, very difficult to play. I really do think he's very difficult to play. You know, nearly every matchup for Alarak is a skill matchup, I think. And one of the big issues for him is that Thrall will pretty much nearly always beat Alarak in a solo lane. It's quite difficult to play that one as Alarak. And with Thrall being so good, it just, you know, you pick Alarak, they pick Thrall, you kind of go, oh, okay, well, we got this really awkward solo lane where it's hard to do, it's hard to use. Thrall's just so good against him. But Alarak is a really good solo laner, really, really strong. He's got great burst, great kill potential, great playmaking potential, but you do need to invest a lot of time into playing him well. I've seen a few very good Alaraks, and they're very, very good. I've also seen probably about maybe 20% of the Alaraks I've seen have been really good. About 80% have been mediocre, and they just don't have much impact. So it's very much, are you good at Alarak? Yes, go for it then. And it's going to be great, but if not, Illidan, difficult to draft. You need to build a draft around him for the most part, but he can be very, very strong, very dominant. I mean, Illidan's the same he's always been. Falstad, I really feel like Falstad has fallen off. I really do. Like, he brings so much utility as a damage dealer, but then his damage is just an awful lot weaker in teamfights than nearly all the other assassins. His teamfight damage is really quite poor. He brings great wave clear. He brings a global. He's got gust. Those things are fantastic, but the trade-off for having all those things is that your teamfight damage just ain't that good. It's just not that good. I think that is a bit of a problem for Falstad, is that you're giving up a lot of damage in order to take him, as opposed to taking something like a Vala, you know what I mean? You're giving up a lot of damage in order to do that. But I do think he's solid. I just don't think he's, you know, the crazy, amazing first pick always all the time hero that he used to be by any means anymore. Especially as, again, with the global nerf we had in the previous patch like a week ago. Then we got Lunara's up next, and I really do like Lunara a lot. I love Lunara. She just does a lot of sustained damage. She can spec into amazing siege damage. All like that spread AoE, and just she outputs just a ton of damage, and it's really, really good. I think generally probably run Gul'dan a bit more than Lunara, because he kind of brings the wave clear earlier and stuff like that, but Lunara is still very strong in something like Tomb of the Spider Queen. She's still really, really, really strong, and I like her a lot, and I'm more than happy, honestly, to see Lunara's in my game. I might even put her up higher. I don't know. I feel like maybe I've rated her a bit low. I love Lunara. I do. Next up we have Tracer. Tracer is kind of a funny fish, because she's just crazy powerful with Tassadar, but without Tassadar, kind of weak. She's a weird hero. She can work kind of well with Abathur as well. And she's difficult to play. I think the big thing for me, moving Tracer down the tier list a bit this time around, is that, again, like I said, people like the glory. People do not like to play Tassadar. And, you know, it's a big ask if you go into a solo queue environment and the stranger is like, yo, your Hero League win is on the line. Will you play Tassadar for my Tracer? Because the person who's being asked to play Tassadar obviously is sitting back and going, wait, what if this person sucks? And, you know, Hero League mentality. You're kind of going in going, all of my teammates suck. They always suck. I have to do everything. And then someone comes in and goes, hey, I'm going to play Tracer. Will you support me at Tassadar? That's a big ask. It's a big ask. I've seen Tracer Tassadar be incredibly strong with GeoQ combos. Not so sure that she's going to be good with just a pure solo queue Hero League, so we'll see. But she can be very good when she gets into that right situation. Then we got the Butcher. I think the Butcher is very strong. I really do. I think he's very difficult to draft, though. Very, very difficult to draft. Again, you're relying on your teammates supporting you. You're relying on the enemy team not being able to counterpick him. But I do think he can be very, very good. And he's not played enough, I think. But yeah, the Butcher can be very strong. Great pick potential, huge damage, and draws so much resources from the enemy team. But I have moved him down a lot again, just because of how difficult he is to play, or at least to fit into an actual game, and how he can be counterpicked and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you want to catch my video on how to play the Butcher, that might be quite helpful. Focusing on getting your stacks complete and your quests complete as early as possible, and then just dominating that mid game with the absurd damage output you have. And finally, we've got Varian at the end of tier 2. I really think he's a very, very overrated hero. It's kind of nice that you've got the two options in terms of your assassin build. I think Colossus Smash, like I've said, is just significantly better. The big problem with Varian is that until level 10, you're just crap. You suck. He's such a bad hero, right? You know what I mean? Like, instead of having Thrall, you got a Varian. So suddenly you have this hero that is crap in the solo lane. He's crap in the multi-lanes. He's crap at doing objectives and mercs. He just sucks at everything. Level 10, he gets really powerful. But then again, a lot of heroes get really powerful at level 10, and they're much better before that point as well. So I don't know about Varian. I think he's a really mixed bag. I think, you know, he can be very good, but overall, nah. And I really do think that the frickin' Fury build is so overrated. People think it's great. I would way rather have a Samuro or an Illidan or a Butcher than a Fury Varian. I really would. I don't like it at all. But anyway, I think he's still kind of tier 2, but definitely the bottom end for me personally. Finally, tier 3, I think these are the heroes that are quite a bit weaker. and that you're not going to run that often. First up, we got Kelthus, who does a lot of AoE damage, a lot of wave clear, but apart from that, he doesn't do too much. I have put him up to the top of tier 3 though with the Pyroblast buff. I don't know, I'm kind of curious. Again, I do feel like Kelthus can be a really good pick sometimes, but it's quite rare. I would generally say, why are you picking Kelthus when you can pick any of like any of these tier 1 or tier S heroes? I feel like are generally much better. Like, why pick him for like sustained AoE damage and wave clear when you can pick Gul'dan? Very rarely you want to do that. Why pick him for like burn? Like, if you need single target damage, he's really bad, you know, compared to like Raynor or Li Ming. For kind of burst AoE damage, I feel like Jaina does it much better. So yeah, I don't know, but there is a place for him. There's a place for him, particularly when stuff gets banned or picked away, and you need a lot of wave clear and something like maybe Tomb of Spider Queen. I think he'd be really strong right there, but rare. Nova again, similar, kind of underrated as well, very underrated as well, and hated a bit needlessly. But she is she's got a spot. She does have a spot. She's got good burst damage and pick potential. But I mean, difficult to fit her into composition. She's not going to be your main range damage dealer, but you kind of fit her in as your flexi role, and she's kind of good at that. I think there's a spot for her, but again, it's going to be unusual. And you know, why are you running Nova when you can have Zeratul or something like Li Ming? It's somewhat difficult to justify, but she can be good. Next up, we got Chromie, and Chromie got a buff. I think Chromie's difficult to play. She's inconsistent. I think that's her big problem. I think she's alright, but yeah, generally speaking, again, you want to pick something else. Li Ming's also really good against Chromie. I was just, you know, it's a classic thing, right? People go, Chromie's good on Towers of Doom. Let's first pick Chromie. The enemy team just goes, LOL, we'll pick Li Ming, picks Force Armor, and suddenly we got this ranged damage dealer that Chromie cannot, like, even hurt, that can just kill Chromie super easily, and you just lie back and you cry and go, why did you pick Chromie? Why? It's awful. We got Greymane. I think Greymane's quite weak, honestly. I just think he's really bad. I just do. He's not great in range form. He's not great in melee form. I don't know about Greymane, guys. I just wouldn't pick him. And then Gall, I think, just sucks as well. You don't really want to be playing Gall, do you? Especially because you're going to be with a stranger. You're completely at their mercy, you know? Completely at the mercy of this guy to drive you around. You know, don't know if he's going to be good or if he's going to be bad. You just have to sit there and be a turret. I think it's going to be very boring and also very risky. So yeah, don't play him. And there you go. That's the Assassins, guys. Take a quick look. If you want to take a quick look, we're going to move on to supports. Alright, here we go. Supports. Let's get into this. Again, specialists and supports, much smaller groups of heroes. We're going to get through these pretty fast. Tier S, I got Malfurion as the Tier S support. I think he's just overall the best support in the game right now. Great sustained healing. Twilight Dream is insanely strong in team fights. It's crazy. Does a ton of damage, and the silence, very impactful. And then the roots, so useful for getting kills. And you know, hey, you also give mana and cooldown reduction to your teammates. He's just, overall, I think, the best support. By a small margin, but still by a margin, nonetheless. We got Tier 1 as well. Big change here, actually, from last time. I think Oriel is still there. Important with Oriel that you draft nearly always a high sustained damage ranged assassin, something like that. So something along the lines of Gul'dan or Vala, Lunara, something like that, right? That's kind of the thing you want with Oriel generally, because it gives her this steady, consistent, guaranteed stream of energy. Whereas, let's say, I mean, the thing is, like, if you run her with, you know, something like a Kerrigan, well, Kerrigan goes in. Like, if Kerrigan is your main source of damage for energy, what if she misses her combo or it doesn't work out? Suddenly you're stuck with no energy. Or same thing with Li Ming. You know, if Li Ming doesn't get her resets or misses some skill shots, suddenly you got no energy. That can be a bit dodgy. But when you do run her with those, like, consistent sources of energy, amazingly strong. And then she works really well. Like, you know, something like Oriel running with, like, a Kerrigan and I don't know, like a Vala. That's pretty scary. That's pretty damn scary. Anyway, next up we got Kharazim. Kharazim actually really strong, much stronger than I expected. Cool thing you can do with Kharazim is you run him as like kind of a half support. Basically, you grab Iron Fist at level 1. Then from that point on, you're pretty good. The extra damage is really nice. Great for objectives, for mercs, for wave clear and stuff like that. For pushing down structures too, pretty damn useful. And just extra damage in the team fight. And he still does plenty of healing. Divine Palm, still really good. You can also go into 7-sided strikes to try to take out a warrior. He's got a very good win rate. He's just great. He's just really good right now. And it opens up a lot of the secondary support type things. So, for example, he could work really well, I'd say, with Zarya, who does like a supporty warrior type thing. Works pretty well with Tyrande. Works well with Tassadar. Works well with a lot of heroes along that line. So I think he's actually really, really good. Much better, actually, than I expected him to be. He's got a cool niche. Brings some movement speed too for his teammates, which is cool. And he's mobile. I like him a lot. We've got Tyrande actually. I've moved up to tier 1. I think Tyrande is very underrated right now. She's very underrated. Like Battlefield of Eternity. I think even Tomb of the Spider Queen, Towers of Doom. A lot of these maps, she's so good. She's so good. You can get away with her as solo support sometimes. And I've actually won multiple Battlefield of Eternity games going, oh shit, like I'm last pick in the draft. This draft has gone pretty badly. We don't have a team that's strong enough to team fight them, and we are actually just losing that immortal race barely. So it's really awkward. And I go, you know what? Instead of grabbing like a Malfurion or something, we're going ham. Gonna pick Tyrande. Okay, sure. Our healing is kind of weak. I'm just going full damage Tyrande. Our healing is weak. But we're going to have a ton of kill pressure in the team fights, and we're going to like race this immortal. I'm going to win it now. And you completely mix up the game and stuff like that. Now, I love Tyrande, and like, sounds kind of arrogant or whatever, but I'm very good at her. So that works for me. I don't know if it works for everyone. But yeah, I think she's great. I think she's really underrated. Looking at Hotslogs before doing this, she is like the top win rate support hero at the moment. So there you go. But yeah, her pick potential is huge. She works great as a second support, and there's a lot of heroes that work well with like double support at the moment and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's a great place for her right now. I mean, she worked really well with Karazim, for instance. I think really, really well. Or with Oriole too. Yeah, she's really, really good. She does a lot of damage when you build her damage. Like, you'd be surprised. Then we got tier 2. Again, these heroes are very good, but you won't see them as often. In fact, hang on. That tier 2 is a little bit... there we go. That looks a bit better. Aesthetics are important. So we got Brightwing. I think with the global nerfs, Brightwing has fallen off quite a bit. I think she's still, again, tier 2. So she's a very solid hero. She's great. She's just not as dominant, I don't think, as these other ones anymore. But she's still a good solid hero, all things considered. Same thing with Tassadar. Tassadar is, you know, when you have him in a particular composition, basically you want that second support because you got some sort of hyper carry type heroes. Something like a, you know, Illidan or a Vala, or both. If you're really lucky, then Tassadar can be amazing. Again, I suppose the big risk with Tassadar is that you are very much a support, so that's going to put people off him a lot. He doesn't see much play, but I do think he's going to be good. I also expect him to be reworked very soon, so do bear that in mind. But yeah, at the moment, I do think he works very, very strong in certain team compositions. And finally, we've got Rhaegar. Rhaegar got a kind of nice buff in this patch in terms of his basic attack damage and the damage of his wolf. Quite a large buff. And Bloodlust too. So it'll be interesting to see how he pans out. Much like Karazim, like, I could be surprised either way in terms of which way he goes. I think Rhaegar's probably going to be tier 2. I think he's a pretty decent burst healer now, and he's got kind of good aggression as well. Good wave clear, good at taking mercs and objectives, that sort of thing. Brings a bit of damage to the team fight. I don't think he's as good as these heroes, but I think, you know, he's pretty solid overall. And I thought he was very weak before. I think with the sort of buffs they're giving him, we might start to see him more. And I'm very curious to see if Bloodlust does well or not. I don't know. I don't know. I'm really curious about that. Could be pretty interesting. You know, hey, Bloodlust Rhaegar plus Tassadar with like Vala Illidan. I don't know. That could be kind of cool, right? Maybe that's a bit too crazy. Maybe it's a bit too crazy. Anyway, tier 3 heroes that are a little less dominant than the others. I would think actually though with tier 3 supports, I think they're kind of like a bit better than the tier 3 warriors or the tier 3 assassins, in my opinion. I think they're actually alright. I think they're pretty okay. We got Uther. Again, he does a lot of burst healing, and he's, you know, great with melee assassins. You know, I think he's good. I think, you know, he's just not as dominant overall at the moment, but he's certainly not bad. He's okay. He's just, I do think the other supports are a bit better. Lily, again, Lily's pretty good as a secondary support, again, against... I feel like the melee assassins, like the sort of basic attacky melee assassin. I mean, like, Greymane's really fallen off. And the Butcher has been difficult to make work. Illidan is there, but he's not played that much. So, I don't know, like, the melee assassins with sort of sustained basic attack damage are much weaker than... they're less dominant than they have been, which I feel like is part of why Lily and Uther have kind of fallen off. But yeah, you can totally run Lily as like a second support. She does a lot of damage. You need to build her right. I just build W build, and it's great, right? That's what you do. Build W build, and you're happy. Cool. And she's really good against kind of melee, assassin-y, sustained damage type ones, if they have those. Then we got Morales as well. Great single target damage, great laning. I think she'd be probably quite good on something like Braxis Holdout or something like that. But generally speaking... no. Generally speaking, no. She's weak in team fights because she can only heal one person at a time, and she's very vulnerable herself. So, yeah, generally speaking, I don't think so. And there you go, that is supports. Take a look. And finally, let's end it. Oh, I forgot. I've totally forgot Ragnaros. I think Ragnaros probably, roughly speaking, around tier 1. I'm really unsure where he's going to fit, because I only got to see him on Cursed Hollow. Again, we didn't have any proper, it's PTR, so you don't have proper team comps. You don't have a draft. You don't have proper matchmaking. So it's really hard to tell. You could have, that's the thing, you could like have 3 games and walk away thinking he's the most OP hero ever, and have your view really distorted by the fact that the team comps and the matchmaking just really, really suited you, much more so than it would otherwise. I mean, 2 good examples of the PTR thing misleading people. We had Varian. People were like, oh my god, he's going to be so OP. Came out and was pretty crap, honestly. Let's be honest here. He wasn't that good, but people thought he was going to be super OP when he was not, which was hilarious. That just shows you, like, with a new hero, how wrong people are. Like, 60% plus win rate came out 50%. They're 10% off in terms of the win rate. It's very easy to go wrong with that. So I'm always very cautious with these new heroes. Or then in the last patch, I remember I had a video on Illidan, and people were going like, Illidan Battered Assault is so OP, it's going to be amazing. And I was kind of going, whoa. It's like, the P2R at the moment, it's all like melee basic attack heroes, so it's really easy to trigger Battered Assault, and Illidan is super effective. It's not going to be like that on live servers, and lo and behold, it's not, super dominant like people were kind of suspecting, so there you go. But I do think Ragnaros could be quite good. He's got great wave clear. His trait, like, I don't know with a trait how good it's going to be, but it seems like it could be really strong. And again, very curious to see him on something like Braxis, to see him on... Yeah, I mean, Braxis seems pretty good. Infernal Shrines seems pretty good. Like, I'm really curious to see how he's going to pan out. He seems to me like he's going to be really strong. So, again, this is like just to indicate roughly sort of tier 1 standard. But I don't know. He could be tier S. I'd be surprised if he's tier 3. I think he's going to be quite good. He's got self-sustain. He's got wave clear. He's got, probably pretty decent team. I'm not sure. We'll see. Again, new hero. Gotta see how it pans out in the actual game. Let's move on to specialists then. Tier S specialist, Sergeant Hammer. I think Sergeant Hammer's great. She's really good. Very underrated as well. She was very common for a while. Then for kind of no reason, well, kind of Vala became popular. She kind of fell off a bit then. Sergeant Hammer's still amazing. She's really good. Because people tend to be very bad at her. They just siege up and never unsiege, and they're crap. But when you know how to use your siege mode correctly, she's so good, right? She does a lot of damage in teamfights, actually. She's more like an assassin in that sense. She can play quite assassin style in the teamfights and do very well. And then also this fact that, just sieging up and taking down structures can be very difficult for the enemy team to deal with and get you a good lead. Sergeant Hammer is really, really strong right now. Then we got tier 1, and all of these heroes are very, very good. Kind of interchangeable, honestly, as to where they place. You got the Lost Vikings. I have a video up on them, I think, today. In fact, it should be going live at 7 PM right now, so it should actually be live right now. So hooray, and it'll be up before this video is out, so check that out. You want to learn all about the Lost Vikings, but they're great. We got Zool, who's also amazing. He's great. Dragonshire, Blackheart's Bay, Infernal Shrines, Tomb of Spider Queen, anything with like quick rotations between a couple of lanes. He just, so much wave clear, free wave pushing. Zool's just, he's really good. He's really, really good. Again, a consistently underrated hero as well, because he's not very flashy. He's more of like a support type mage. He's a weird hero, but he's really good. And then we got Sylvanas, of course, much more popular than Zool. And she is, I think, kind of overrated a bit, but she can be very strong. Bit of a win more hero, I think, is the problem with Sylvanas, is that when you fall behind, she's quite weak. But when you do get ahead with pushing objectives, she can be insane. Tomb of Spider Queen, Infernal Shrines, Battlefield of Eternity, Braxis Holdout, where you got these big wave pushes. She can turn off the structures and you get so much more value out of them. She can be really good at that. And Wailing Arrow is very good in teamfights too. Sylvanas, I think she's very strong. We got tier 2 heroes. So Nazeebo have actually moved up. I think Nazeebo is definitely an up-and-coming hero, right? He's very strong in the late game. He's still kind of crap in the early game, though. So I don't know. I need to be careful as to who you're solo laning against, because you can just get bullied out by, like, Thrall or Alarak or something. They just bully the crap out of you, and you don't have any impact at all in the early game. It's quite brutal. I don't know if you have much impact in the early game at all in general. But yeah, like, late game, he's super strong. And they did buff him actually a good bit in the last patch, just making his stuff easier to play. So yeah, I think tier 2 is probably pretty good for that. Got Gazlo, again another overly hated hero. People were, I thought it was hilarious. There was like the survey, the HOTS like December survey, or maybe it was November, I don't know. But he was the second most. I think he was chosen second most as the worst hero in the game. And I was sitting there going, at the time, he was like the 4th highest win rate hero. 4th highest win rate hero perceived as the 2nd worst hero. That's like a 50-something hero differential. That's absurd. It's crazy. He's hated for no reason. Guys, Infernal Shrines, just play Gaslow and just fucking laugh as you win the game. He's really good in certain niches. He's really good. Definitely underrated. So yeah, I don't think he's generally as useful as these guys, but he's a good hero. He's definitely good. And then we got Medivh. Medivh, very difficult to play. Very, very difficult to play. So this is very much determined by whether you're a very good Medivh player or not. If you are a very good Medivh player, though, Medivh can be a great hero, great at countering burst, and just bringing a lot of tricks to the game. He really mixes up the game, makes it a very different one to play, and that's what I like about him. But he is difficult to play. He's, I think, the lowest win rate in the game overall, so bear that in mind. You want to be very good at him and know when to pick him to make him work. And finally, Tier 3. I think these heroes are a bit weaker overall, though again, I think the Specialist Tier 3s, kind of like the Support Tier 3s, are not as far below as like the Warrior and Assassin ones are. We got Abathur. Abathur can be really good, but again, very difficult hero to play. So he's got a terrible win rate, but with good Abathur players in a good Abathur comp, he can do very well. Something like Abathur with Illidan, you know, things like that. I've got an Abathur video up pretty recently too, so check that out. I go into much more detail. We've got Azmodan, who can be pretty strong on some maps. It's, you know, this sort of split pushing hero with good interrupts and stuff like that. But again, I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about Azmodan. I always do. I have such mixed feelings about this guy. I think he's alright. He's alright. We got Zagara then. I think she's quite a bit weaker. I don't see much reason, honestly, to ever pick her. She's got a global at level 10, which is pretty cool, and she's great at pushing lanes and stuff. I did it, again, a video on her very recently, doing her on Blackheart's Bay, which is pretty cool. So she's got a place in that sense, but generally speaking, she's a weird one. He's a bit of a weird one, and we'll see how she pans out. And then we got Murky, who I think is just rather weak overall. I mean, he just gets countered in the draft, and there's not much else to it. You know, something as simple as Cleanse, it just removes Octograb as an actual thing, and that's quite difficult to deal with. So yeah, I'm not really sure about Murky overall. There you go, that is the Specialist. Let's just go through these one more time. Here is the tier list, guys. Give it a thumbs up as well if you did enjoy the video. We've got Warriors right here. I think this is roughly speaking what Warriors are going to look like in this patch. Again, though, we had a number of reworks in the Warrior thing, and I'm expecting more changes, so do bear that in mind. We've got the Assassins. I think Ragnaros looks like he's going to be very strong. And yeah, Raynor is going to be the underrated hero of the start of Season 3. You're going to... I had someone comment, you know, I made a Raynor video the other week being like, guys, Raynor's actually really strong. I didn't realize that there was a bug at the time which was contributing to the strength of him. But someone left a comment I thought kind of sums up what Raynor's going to be like very well. They said, I think they said they'd won something like, they played 19 games, won 17, lost 2. They got flamed in nearly every game for picking Raynor, and they won nearly every game. They obviously are very good at him. Or they did something really well to have that crazy of a win rate. But certainly Raynor's strength is a contributing factor. But yeah, people are going to be really unhappy when you pick him, but he's going to be amazingly effective and works very well when you build him with Executioner and you've got a nice controlled CC team. I think he's great with a lot of the popular heroes right now, and he's great against a lot of the popular heroes. So yeah, go Raynor. Supports, like, okay, for example, in terms of supports, you know, like Malfurion has got great sustained healing, but, you know, Raynor, if Raynor starts, like, just burning your tank, what's Malfurion gonna do? Malfurion can't do anything. It's like, oh, have a heal over time tank, please, stop dying, please, oh my god, there's nothing I can do, you know what I mean? So there you go. We've got supports over here. Kind of mixed it up quite a bit, actually, this season. We got the global nerf for Brightwing's fallen down quite a bit. Kharazim really coming up, kind of the advent of, like, the sort of the double support, or, like, the sort of pseudo support with Iron Fist, Kharazim being really strong. Then we got Tyrande, kind of a bit of a sleeper hit. Love Tyrande. I must do a Tyrande video. I probably have one recently, but I might need to do one again. I don't know. And then, yeah, just supports overall. And then specialists. Here we go. Again, fairly standard. The specialists haven't changed too much. But, yeah, there you go, guys. Hope you found that helpful. That is the tier list for Season 3. Obviously, you know, we'll do a new one with the next big patch. And do stay tuned to the videos. It's a new thing I've been doing a lot to really move beyond this tier list. When I'm doing the individual hero videos, I will talk about, okay, these are the maps the hero is really good on, where you want to pick them. These are the heroes they work well with, who they work well against, what to avoid, how to draft with and against them, and stuff like that. I'll kind of break it down much more. So that's kind of the next step to a tier list, in case you're wondering, is to really look at, okay, well, sure, you know, Sergeant Hammer overall is like, I would consider her overall to be the best specialist, but why? What maps is she strong on? What heroes is she good with? What is she good against? Counter synergy, stuff like that. That's the next level, and that's what I explore now. I've been trying to explore very much so in my individual hero videos. So if you want to go a bit deeper, kind of check those out. We'll be going into ranked as well for season 3 and putting this sort of into practice. We'll see how it goes. So hopefully you stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all next time for more Heroes of the Storm. Bye bye.